Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report. As always, your host Matt, mattreport.com. Mattreport.com/subscribe. Join the mailing list. Join over 1,000 other folks just like you who have joined in on the weekly email where we talk about WordPress stuff, right? WordPress entrepreneurship, running a better WordPress business. How do we build a team? How do we find clients? How do we do all that fun stuff? So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for 5-star reviews. Really, really appreciate it on iTunes. And those of you who are Matt Report Pro members, thanks for supporting the show. I couldn't do this without you. One of the very first things I've been able to get on the show is a SoundCloud Pro account, which allows me to upload my audio to SoundCloud, which is really helping with the bandwidth here and helping find a new audience out on SoundCloud. So if you are listening on SoundCloud, thank you very much. If you don't know what SoundCloud is, check it out. It's a great app and website where you can subscribe to the show and comment on the tracks. It's really cool because you can kind of comment in line to the audio. I find it really enjoyable. It's sort of actually, I'm using that more than I'm using Spotify, which maybe I should start to cancel my Spotify account because I don't really use it as much as I use SoundCloud anymore. So Marcus Couch, who is he? What does he do? He's a man, a myth, a legend in the WordPress podcasting world. He's doing more podcasts than I think, and his two more popular podcasts, which is Industry Night, which airs on WP Tavern, which is sort of like an informal chat with WordPress developers and designers. And then he has WordPress Plugins A to Z, where he's taking a look in depth at plugins, sort of like what we do over on Press This. But he's been doing that for quite some time. He's got another podcast coming out, which is sort of just the plugin daily plugin review, which he's just picking new plugins that are hitting the repository and just reviewing them. But I didn't invite Marcus on just to talk about WordPress podcasting, just because this is a WordPress podcast. I wanted to talk about his particular vertical, which is servicing franchises, franchisees, franchisors, folks who are starting a franchise. And that's where he goes after. So it's definitely an interesting angle in how he services his clients and how he sets a minimum of what it's the cost or the price to work with Marcus. So he's going to give us some tips and advice on how to negotiate that minimum contract and selling sort of our time, but our expertise at the same time. We're also going to dive into a really good story about dealing with the right teammates or partners or even vendors if you can actually use this same lesson to trickle down to that. He had a hard lesson that he shares with us. It gets really personal, so I thank Marcus for sharing that with us. And let me know in the comments of the blog post or shoot me an email, mattreportblog@gmail.com. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about the podcast in general. If you're looking for something else out of the podcast, you want me to find new guests or you want me to take on new different angles for WordPress, let me know. I'm happy to do so for my loving audience. If you want to support the show, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your WordPress colleagues, mattreport.com. Join the mailing list, mattreport.com/subscribe and mattreport.com/join. You can join the membership and get all kinds of free content that I give out every month. We do Friday lessons, Friday editions, which we're teaching folks in the membership how to do certain things. It doesn't always focus around WordPress. It could be about invoicing, contracts, that kind of thing. And every month we're doing a special lesson from other WordPress specialists in the field. Last month was how to build a WordPress theme shop with Carrie Dills and Tom McFarlane. Prior to that, it was Chris Lemma, Pippin Williamson, and actually Tom McFarlane again, talking about finding clients, raising prices, that kind of thing. So lots of lessons, lots of great conversation going on in the forums. So go ahead and check that out, mattreport.com/join. This conversation picks up in the middle of a live show, so it doesn't start off with a typical introduction, but we will drop you in right after the break here with Marcus Couch. Thanks, everybody. So for those just joining into the podcast, thanks for listening, mattreport.com, the #1 WordPress business podcast on the web. Today, here with Marcus Couch, who is a podcasting phenomenon, doing more shows than I am. Pretty amazing.
Am I?
The Simon.
I don't know. We're pretty close.
Are you the Simon Cowell of WordPress podcasting? Is that
I'd love to be the. I'd like to be like the first kind of known critic. Kind of like the Siskel and Ebert sort of WordPress, with a critical eye rather than a kind of a productive eye, so to speak.
And that's sort of what you do with one of your podcasts, Plugins A to Z.
Overall, yeah.
You look at them from the critic's view, and you kind of play with them and install them, try out what's good, what's bad, and then give your expert opinion. You do another podcast, Industry Night. Both actually air over on the Tavern, if I am correct.
The first one does not.
Okay.
WordPress Plugins A to Z, that's just a strict independent thing that was started by John Overall about a year before I actually jumped on board. It was a show that I really liked, and he had a different co-host at the time, and his co-host left, and it's an interesting story. I had gone, this was, I don't know, maybe it was during the demise of WP Tavern, when it was kind of idle for a
demise.
Love it. And WordPress Weekly wasn't really even going on, and Jeff had said that he was, pretty much thinking about hanging it up. And I had gone to Jeff and said, hey, I'd love to be a co-host on the show with you. And he said, that's really not the direction I want to go in. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And so a couple weeks later, this other opportunity opened up, and it was great because it actually allowed me to kind of introduce myself to the WordPress community, not on the main stage, kind of like the second stage, so to speak. And the weekly regimen of John and I really getting into the plugins and really kind of going back and forth about them really has honed my skills as far as what I look for. And my first year was just kind of reviewing plugins, and then year 2 on, it's always been me trying to kind of point out what a specific plugin can do for somebody that's making money out there. So I'll look at a plugin and go, hey, anybody out there that's in these specific niches, you should be paying attention to this because you can charge more as a specific add-on,
So there's a bunch of things that I want to talk about. Let's give folks that were not part of the live session a bit of background of how you got started. So you really early on, say 10 years ago, getting into podcasting, and then you kind of found WordPress in the same
correct, yeah.
in the same stride. What was that like? Early on, you said Adam Curry with podcasting. Then you found WordPress. Did you immediately marry the two, podcast plus WordPress, or was it?
It took a while. It really did. It took a while because it wasn't the WordPress that we all use today by any stretch. There weren't all the cool plugins that go along with it. It was, Kubrick was a blessing when it came out.
Yeah.
There were some really bad themes, really bad ones out there. And I'm not proud of how my websites looked back then, but you can go in the Wayback Machine and take a look at them. But even today, I've still got some clunkers out there as far as websites go that could use some theme updates. But it's really been great from my evolution in podcasting, because I had a music show, independent hard rock, heavy metal music. And I never really got the interaction that I do now that I am in the WordPress community. That's a whole different game. So I really just kind of honed what it is that I do every day, which is when I get up, I check my email, and the very next thing that I do after all the responses is I go into the repository and take a look at all of the plugins, one by one. Look at all the screenshots, look at all of the different demos. And so that happened before I ever started podcasting about plugins. So for me, it's kind of just like I'm still a DJ. I'm just, instead of spinning tunes, I'm talking about plugins.
So it's really interesting because you're coming from an industry, an age-old industry, right? Radio. Something just like print. Print obviously around way before radio, but it's that same kind of mindset, right? Where you come from radio and people are like, oh, podcasting, what's that? Or from the business standpoint, they might look at podcasting and say, that's not really going to make us as much money as advertising on Clear Channel or being this huge conglomerate.
Right.
Even 10 years later after
you launch podcasting, do you still find that some of your colleagues from the old days are still like struggling to get this stuff?
Yeah, I do. And I see people that are new at it that haven't learned the lessons that some of us have learned. They're making the mistakes again. And even though there are tons of resources out there, anybody who wants to get into podcasting, schoolofpodcasting.com is an awesome resource that even I consult every now and again as far as different tools and tricks in podcasting. But I guess the biggest mistake that people make is they over-plan things for episode 1 when they need to realize that it's episode 20 that really counts.
Yeah. It's like that with, I guess, everything, right? Even their websites. Like they're thinking, hey, brand new website, I'm plan,
Yeah.
tweak this pixel. Can you give me 10 pixels over here? It's like,
Yeah.
come on, dude. We need to launch.
I'll give you an example. Industry Night, the podcast that's on WP Tavern that I just talk about one thing. I did an interview with somebody in Skype and recorded it and didn't do it with any other intention than I was just going to write about this particular plugin. And I'm like, boy, this really sounds good, when I played it back. And I then got out my sound effects toolkit and found an 1.5 hour long bar sound effect. And I'm like, hey, let me play this together. And I put it on there, and I'm like, wow, this really sounds like you're sitting here listening to us talk. And so I pitched it to Jeff at WP Tavern, and I said, I'll get some artwork made for this, and we can actually make this a show where it's like somebody's just pulling up a chair and having a beer with us and sitting down. And it was really kind of theater of the mind stuff that I liked playing around with, and it seemed to fit with the whole tavern vibe. So we went with it. He liked it, so we went with it. So
Nice.
That's a case where I didn't overthink a podcast. It just kind of came about in one day, really. It wasn't even... I had the content before I had the show, and that's probably the biggest tip.
Yeah.
Get the content before the show rather than get in the bucket and trying to fill it.
Right. So for one of the themes that I had for last year when I would go to WordCamps, it was really talking about sort of all these different unique lessons that I've learned from guests on the Matt Report. So I kind of turned that into my WordCamp presentation, and pulled some of the highlights of the different experiences that folks have. This year, I'm trying to focus on promoting what it's like to grow an audience, and for your business, for your brand, for pleasure, whatever it might be. So podcasting for me was the same exact thing. Like, I never thought of even labeling myself a podcaster at all. I just went into show number 1, and the only preparation I really had was reading the Podcasting 101 from, of course, now is Ravencraft.
Cliff.
I couldn't think of his first name. And just watching what other people were doing, like Andrew Warner of Mixergy, Jason Calacanis of This Week in Startups, Leo Lepore on This Week in Tech, or the Twit Network.
Yeah.
And
it's not that hard, is it?
No. And that was it. So it is a little scary, because every time I talk to folks like you and Dustin Hartzler and John from Entrepreneur on Fire, all these other folks who've been doing it for so long, even Chris Brogan, because didn't he start PodCamp?
Yes.
As well?
I don't think he even had a podcast at the time, though.
Right.
But he was just such an enthusiast and community activist.
Yeah, it's like so you're always you're nervous when you walk into the room. I mean, as far as anybody who's out there, it's like, you know what, I want to do a podcast, or I just want to turn on YouTube so I can do screencasts for folks, like folks who are using my plugin or folks who are buying my themes, because even that comes with some kind of stress to turn the camera on or to turn the mic on, because everybody hates the sound of their voice, right?
It's true, but there are tons of videos out there that have 1 million views that are the worst equipment you've ever seen in your life, right? And we've all sat there and watched the whole 12-minute clip of it and not said, oh, this guy really needs some good, he needs a DSLR, this and this, You really don't. It's that kind of thing where it's like, the girl across the room. You just you don't need the special tie or all that stuff. Just get up and go over there and do it, and that's it's with anything really. It's getting from 0 to 1 is the hardest part, right?
Do you think that in the world that we're living in now, at least this year with web marketing, the way SEO is changing, the way Google and all these other outlets want you to create content, you're afraid that folks are going to be doing this very lackluster,
Sure.
and it's just going to get saturated? And any way we can kind of avoid this?
Well, it already has. I mean, right after podcasting started, you started getting these text-to-speech kind of blog reading podcast feeds that would make their way through. But it's natural selection. If you really want to go by what's good, you go by the ratings and the charts on iTunes and Stitcher and how many subscriptions a particular channel has in YouTube. And that's a good barometer on things.
For a guy who's been doing it for so long, how much do you hate iTunes? And the fact that it's so closed and doesn't give us enough stuff. This is more of a rant of my own, but come on, like stats or download. I mean, just give me the numbers. Like, why?
Well, a lot of that has to do with RSS too, because also I can put your podcast enclosure in my feed, right? And that would add to your stats, but not necessarily mine. So you just have to kind of look at it from that angle. But ultimately, look, we should all be using podcasts as a call to action in some form, whether that be to sign up to a newsletter or in your own case to a membership site or participation in a community or any particular cause. It's just one tool. It's not necessarily a crutch. It's just one tool.
We chatted before the cameras went on about the WordPress consulting that you do. It's a very unique one that I haven't really had anybody on the show talk about yet. So I'll let you define what it is that you do, because you're going to do it better than I am.
I do franchise optimization, which is I work for many large companies that have hundreds to up to 1,000 locations throughout the country or throughout the world. So we optimize them not only from a main search engine optimization perspective, but also down to the local granular search level, Google Places and Maps and things like that. And we also help to kind of evangelize the strategy from a social strategy, from the top people all the way down to the individual franchisees, and we help them to kind of conform to corporate message, corporate branding, without going astray, but still maintaining local flavor and local specials and discounts and things like that.
How does one find his or herself in that role, connecting with other franchises? How did you find that way? In the beginning, were you just saying yes to every site, and then you realize, oh boy, I got to get vertical here?
Well, I was working with a client that was a large energy company. They were a propane company, the second largest in the world. And they had acquired 400 individual kind of mom and pop, I wouldn't say mom and pop, but medium-sized propane companies around the country, okay? Insert your King of the Hill jokes here, because there were plenty when we had this client. But they absorbed about 400 different domains as well that went along with that. So they used a SharePoint server of all things to kind of get them all aligned. But that was our biggest challenge, to get Google Places entries done for all of those individual locations, to align all of the sites so that they kind of were aligned in one template, and really just maintaining from their old brand to the new kind of corporate ID and message that went through as far as the talking points. So I had one big client that I started out that way, and I'm not sure of any other people really who have got that kind of experience, so I kind of wanted to replicate that with other larger big companies that had similar situations.
How important was when you made that first connection to get them to understand to use WordPress? Did they come to you and say, "We need WordPress"? What was that conversation like? And is it still like that today, where these bigger outlets are just like, "I don't care what the tech is, just get my results"?
Yeah. Well, in some instances, they just said, "Make me a page," right? So it was my choice as far as the platform goes. Other than that, there's really, I mean, it sometimes was a buy-in because I had a client that would say, "Oh, well, I don't really want it to look bloggy, you know, oh, that's just a blog." And I'm like, "Well, let me show you a portfolio here. Let me show you a couple things. I think you might change your tune on that."
So
and quite often they did.
So you never really, sold them on the sizzle of WordPress, like it's a content management system. You've got a media section, you can do posts and pages, and we've got all these plugins that we can do. No. One of the things that sometimes us as lovers of WordPress, people who are just loving this stuff, we get caught up in that tech talk. How do you stay away from that, or does it never really come up in the conversations that you're having?
Most of the people that I deal with are in the marketing department rather than the tech department. So they care about leads. They care about reputation monitoring. They care about what their image is within the community. They don't necessarily care about the technical aspect of how it comes to be to get them from point A to point B.
So you aren't going to go in and I just want to frame what your typical project looks like for somebody listening. The typical client coming to you, you're going to be dealing with marketing person in a marketing department. They're working for a business where they've yet to even meet, the VP of some lower rung floor.
Not always. Oftentimes it's the VP of marketing. Oftentimes it'll be the VP of marketing and the VP of business development. Oftentimes I'm working directly with this, like the CFO or somebody like that.
Got it.
In the realm of dealing with, paid search or those types of things. So it really varies. But my best clients are the ones that I never have to interact with because the reports are all automated and our project management system, is more of a collaboration system than anything where they're included within the task flow.
Yeah, and sort of where some folks fall is they're coming to their clients coming to them and they're saying, "Build us a website," and it's WordPress, and the consultant. Some of the consultants listening to this they're out there and it's okay. I need to get a theme, I need to get some plugins, I got to find the hosting, and they're just focused on building this WordPress solution. Whereas your case, you might be going in and saying, okay, well, WordPress doesn't do reputation management, so what software are we using for that? WordPress doesn't do lead gen, or does lead gen from sort of the technical aspect, but ultimately these bigger businesses are filtering those leads into something else. How many different things are you working with in each project at a time?
Depends. Oh boy, it really depends. Sometimes it could be just down to landing pages, and then it could be landing pages of every single city in the country. So you've got that spread.
Yep.
It could be just regional stuff. It could be all of the state of California, which is 432 different cities and municipalities and such. Yep. So it really depends, and everyone has its own different scheme as far as plugins and designs and what I'm allowed to get away with and what I'm not, and what can be deemed as responsive theme worthy and what shouldn't be, and the gamut. So, and when some of these guys, as I said, you're talking about 400 different sites. So when you're talking about changing something, you better mean it, and you better make sure you know what you're in for once you start doing it.
Yeah, and that's sort of where I was going. In my experience, when dealing with some bigger clients, there's like I don't know a good way to put it. There's like a zero tolerance factor, and not in a bad way, but in more of like their systems and their processes, right? So customer comes to us, they say, oh, we got this ERP system that integrates with our manufacturers, but our leads need to go from here to there. Well, and as soon as you go, well, they go, oh, WordPress doesn't do it? Okay. Let's move on to the Sun microsystem solution or whatever's out there. Do you find yourself running into those scenarios, and how do you juggle that when those guys are like, we got the special software we pay $1 million a year for, what is this WordPress thing?
Yeah, I've had to integrate with Microsoft SharePoint servers too with WordPress. That's not an easy task. That took a couple programmers in about a month to make sure that it all fit right, and that's dealing with tech people on their end too. Wow, didn't we just talk about a nice side business for somebody to get into, the conversion from A to B?
Right.
And I used to have a client that worked in EDI, the electronic data interchange, right? Walmart uses things like this to deal with vendors. It's like, what Band-Aid do you put in that goes from the Walmart system that orders something that then ties into your back-end system that can deal with your inventory management and make the order and the pick pack slip and all of that.
Right.
So are there those things out there for WordPress now? Limited, right? We see them limited in plugins. I mean, we could barely get something to post to Facebook correctly right now.
Right.
There are some e-commerce plugins out there, but do they work entirely the way that they should, like big, monster e-commerce platforms work? Not yet.
Right. And you're saying all the things that I wanted you to say, because this is like the conversation when healthcare.gov launched. People were like, well, why didn't they just build it in WordPress? Oh yeah, because it's that easy. Right? Like you said, we're still struggling to get posts automated to Facebook and Google or whatever for our small marketing clients. Never mind that.
Right.
So what I'm trying to do here is just say, look, WordPress is good. WordPress is pretty good, but it doesn't solve everything. And what I want the consultants to know that are out there listening is, one, either position yourself as the guy or gal who is going to make it do everything and charge a boatload of money for these bigger clients, or you're going to steer clear from it and say, don't even get it in your pipeline, because it's going to be a nightmare. And just say, look, we don't integrate with that. We can find another consultant to do that part. But this is what we do really good. Build the site, design the site, launch the site, support you.
Here's a good analogy for that, and I use this quite often. One of my friends gave me this story of being in a tribute band, right? You have to decide what you're going to play. Okay, we're going to play Van Halen, and we're going to play, the Scorpions, and then we're going to play Stevie Ray Vaughan. Well, okay, now you're getting into blues. You're not really a rock band anymore, right? So kind of know what your set list is, so to speak, right? You got to kind of know what your specialties are, of what you'll do and what you won't do, and stick to them, and you'll be a lot happier. Because I'll tell you what, there have been many nights I've been completely miserable working on things that I had no business even getting involved in.
That's awesome. And hey, how about that as the Matt Report Pro segment at the end of the show for you to answer how you got your set to play right, if that makes sense. And how you found that early on. For folks who are Pro listeners, you will obviously have access to that in the forums. If you're not a Matt Report Pro member yet, you can use promo code MattPro10 to join for little money down and a little money a month to get premium access to our guests, learn from different special guests that we have on every month, and get access to all the courses that are going on, including webinars and mastermind calls. mattreport.com/join. That is the first inline ad read that I've done live.
Nice.
Totally off the cuff.
I would have done that for you. Give me the copy.
So back to our hero, traversing that terrain of sort of this. See, I'm just interested in what the franchise client is like, because in the end, there's somebody out there like you or I who are buying into this franchise, and then there's that trickle down effect of the corporate stuff that kind of wraps around. I'm running a Subway, and I can't promote Coca-Cola or whatever product might not be in there. So what is that like? Do you deal with the end, quote unquote, end user of a franchise, or are you only dealing with the greater powers?
The lowest level in a franchise that there are private ones where one owner owns everything. One person or one corporation owns everything. And then there are franchisee levels where there are district managers that control perhaps maybe 200 within a specific state or region. And that's ultimately where the end level reports filter down to. Some of the technology that I use, which is not WordPress based, it's more application side based, actually monitors a lot of these different yellow pages type things, Yelp, Foursquare, Facebook, and it actually gives a score to the actual review. So if it reads the word sucks, terrible, bad, horrible, awful, it actually assigns a negative connotative score to that. And if it's good, great, awesome, etc., then it gives a positive score for that. So we can tell who's evangelizing as far as anybody in the franchise level that works there that says, hey, give us a review, if you like the service and things. And we tell them that. If somebody says, oh, you gave me such great service, tell people on Yelp, evangelize it, tell them. And so we can kind of keep that running score. And if there's a trend as far as people saying this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, then it ultimately makes its way down to the particular district manager of those branches, and then they report down to what's happening.
Do you get, let's say, larger franchise, you get sort of the design directives from the marketing up in the corporate office, and then do you ever have to go and then change individual stores by what the owner of that store says? Does that ever get in the way?
No. And I don't handle any of the design.
Okay.
At all. Sometimes there are a couple clients that I do handle some of the design work, but for the major ones, it's not necessarily that way. There may be individual landing pages that we create with WordPress where I'll come up with a prototype and they may say, oh yeah, that's perfect, let's just run that. We'll use that. But otherwise, it's just kind of in those instances, it's more of a marketing thing than it is anything else.
In terms of time frames and pressures of being a consultant, what is any kind of story, like an example, local, you're building a website for a local person, they say, you know what, I have this 20% off sale that I want to do, this weekend, and we need to get it, done for the newspaper ad that we're going to do. What happens when it's like a national company? How do you deal with those kinds of pressures? Has it ever happened? Has it not?
Well, sure. A lot of the nationals have print deadlines as well and video deadlines that they also deal with, so they know that cycle. But then again, you've got your other people that say, look, we're expanding into this area, we need 4 websites up this weekend. In which case I've done it. I did it as recently as last week, and I'm still making revisions on these things. But pressures, the biggest pressure for a freelancer is my check going to get here by the 1st, right? The mailman coming, that's hearing the mailman. That's my biggest pressure, is making sure that those checks keep flowing. Yeah.
I had a discussion with many entrepreneurs that have been on the show, and they say that once you get into the bigger checks or the bigger projects, it's really just another zero at the end of the check. It's still coming with the same problems. Whether they're mom and pop who is like, oh, really, I really can't squeeze out that $1,000 to pay you, versus a bigger firm is like, oh yeah, that $10,000, it's coming as soon as it gets through bookkeeping and all that stuff.
Yeah, I wonder, it's a different model, right? Because I've seen guys that work on the small kind of piece model where it's like, hey, we'll just maintain your website for you for $50 a month. Or people like myself that handle the entire project as far as every online property that a company happens to own, from the optimization of it to design changes to analysis and implementation of of new enhancements. So, there's always challenges in any kind of client or project. I guess for the freelancer and the entrepreneur out there, the best advice I could give is space out your payments. Make sure that not everything is due on one day from everybody that you work for. That's maybe one thing that I could give that would maybe give you a little float room that doesn't make it so stressful all the time.
Yeah. We talked, in previous episodes, especially Bill Erickson, who primarily builds out Genesis-powered sites. He has a great way to do it because he has this process of building a site. So a site comes in, here's how we're putting the site together. It's the same every single time. Customer pays 25% deposit, and then 75% is due in 30 days, and you have 5 days to pay this, or the code doesn't get released. But these are smaller projects. This is how he handles his smaller projects. So it's easy to come up with like this system, or easier to come up with this system to kind of just batch process, and move through it. In your world of sort of SEO and building out these sites and kind of dealing with the entire digital package, do you have a set way of structuring your contracts or is it always just like this negotiation process that you find yourself in?
Generally, I work on a retainer, and it's based on the overall volume of work that I think it will take and how much, if any, outsourcing there is. And generally, I don't do a whole heck of a lot, and if it is, it's just plug-in customization or CSS or something that I just don't have time to do. But my structure is basically I ask for full payment up front, and that's pretty ballsy, but I can't risk it. I've been in so many other projects where I get paid later down the road, or down, with a 20% or 15% deposit, and I put all this work into it, and then I never hear from the person again, or it just then becomes revision city as far as how many revisions they think that they earned or paid for. And in those instances, I charge an hourly rate. I say, well, look, we're going to go through 2 rounds of revisions, and then everything else is $300 an hour, and that tends to keep those down. Yeah,
I mean, I love the negotiation process, partly because I grew up in car sales, so I'm just kind of like used to that. Like somebody saying, "Well, how much is this?" And I say, "How much do you have to pay? Like, what's your budget?" I'm not afraid to have those conversations. Some folks are afraid to have that conversation. I do have to get better with negotiating the payment terms, because that's a little bit different on when to get paid. But I am like 90% there to say 100% upfront.
Yeah, and my terms are, if I don't get paid by the 5th, you got a 20% fee that gets tacked on top of that.
Right. And I'm just, every month I say the same thing. I'm going to go back to my contract. I'm going to restructure it. Get the lawyer involved again. Get him to go in and look at that, because it's just simply not good business when you are doing work for free.
No.
You don't have to go to business school.
You give up a lot with your family. I mean, I can't tell you how bad I've been as far as a husband and everything else sometimes, because of the fact that I'm stuck here, working, when it could have been eliminated with just one simple line in a contract that I didn't really think about.
Yeah. Have you had anybody, and so here, I'm going to ask this question. I think I kind of know the answer already, but I want to get your reaction. Have you had anybody say, full payment, jump off a bridge, sir, I'm not paying you until the project's done? And then how do you handle
it? Go call India.
Nice.
Okay. I get people that go, why should I pay you $5,000 a month when I can get $700 from India? Yeah? Tell me how India understands the American consumer and the American marketing machine, because they don't. No offense to anybody from India, but unless you had it drilled in your skull since age 6, you're not going to get it.
Right.
Not like we do.
Right. And I totally agree. And it's funny, this interview is a little bit late today, happening a little late today, because I had a client come in, a good size project, but it's the same thing. They brought in the ultimate decision maker, and he's the owner of the company, and dealing with the marketing department. And they brought him in, and it was that same thing. Well, we think your price is I think your price is way too high. I think I can get this by buying a theme somewhere and outsourcing the development. And I said, you're 100%. Any idiot can build a website, but it's when we are understanding your market, we are understanding who the person is that's buying your product, and all of this discovery and support and immediate access to us, that's the 80% of this project, and training you and supporting you. It's very little to do with about building the site by putting the code together and putting the theme. It's about working with your team, getting everything right. And if you think you can do that through Elance, hey, have fun. I'll see you in a couple months.
Yeah. And there's this quote that I kind of preach to every client that I have, and any of them that watch this are going to be rolling their eyes, which is Google doesn't buy anything, people do. And I think when people have more of an understanding of that even though I have a #1 ranking, I might not convert because my website sucks.
Yep.
You might understand that a little better.
Yep.
I've got a client that has been with me now for 3 years, and when he came to me 2 months in, he wanted to cancel and basically said, I don't think it's working out. It's really not. And I said, look, you've got to give it a little bit more time. We planned on, from A to B to C to D, and right now we're just getting to stage B. And I can say that he's still my client today because in that next 12 months, I made him $7 million on his website just by tweaking a bunch of things and getting the call to action a little different and helping to hone his product and figuring out based on analytics where he was getting his keyword searches and altering the content based on that, and even coming up with new markets for him to promote his product in print and things. So it's you've always got to kind of handhold somebody as far as what the ultimate goal is supposed to be in the project, and always remind them that this is the goal. And they're going to come to you and say, hey, we want to add this into the mix. I had somebody come to me and go, oh, we want to add live chat to the site. No, you want to get leads to the site. Chat with them later,
Right.
But they want information. They can find it by filling out a lead form.
Right. And that's, for the folks that are listening, this is what I think we both want you to take away from this is if you're looking to get more money out of your business, to get paid a little bit more, don't focus on selling just that website. You have to focus on that access that these folks have to you, of your knowledge, of your skill set. Heck, just picking up the phone, you can't do that with a GoDaddy, and if you did, you'll be throwing the phone out the window because you're going to go nuts. Or your Comcast cable. Imagine when you have problems with that and you call them up and you're like, I'm paying you so much money a month.
Right.
Look, this is the real value. The real value is you, the person who's putting this together. And if they want to engage with you on these consulting questions and say, hey, what do you think? Do you think this is the best route for me to go? Do you think my buyers will want this? Or what do you think really works with search? If they're asking those kinds of questions, you have to up your price, or you have to get some kind of retainer contract or contract in place for support, because that's how you're ultimately going to grow and get a little bit more money.
Right. People that ask me that, like, why are you worth that much? Well, it's because other companies, spent $500,000 on me over the course of a couple of years, finding the mistakes that I'm going to make sure you don't make on day one. So that's worth something. That's they learned something through the process that I picked up that is going to ultimately help you. So, also understand, they don't put a Rolls Royce on sale. You never see a Christmas ad for special financing for a Bugatti, right? So don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, no, you don't. You absolutely don't. Looking back 5, 10 years? Is there something you would do different in your business had you known it 5, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think I would have done a little more collaboration on sites like Elance and things where the payment was post project delivery rather than pre. And I know that I say I do that model, but it's different when I'm working with somebody. But I've had some partners that really, really kind of burned me throughout the way. And I think that maybe my enthusiasm got the better of me rather than vetting them as far as their capability of getting the project done.
That's a great thing, because that happens to me all the time. I get
devastating. It was devastating to me and my family. I mean, literally, it took almost half my life savings away. You know?
Yeah, by wasting it on people who are not vested fully with your mission.
And then I found out later on that basically the entire project, the whole thing that I wanted this person to get done, I mean, I moved them from Texas to California. You know, that's how into this project I was. And ultimately, I got the project done for $500 with a programmer in Romania. So that was a lesson that I learned, which is be careful who you partner with. Though don't cut yourself off from partnerships and collaborations. Just make sure that verbal agreements are never one to go on, no matter how long you've known somebody or what their experience level happens to be.
That, my friend, is going to be the pro segment, not that other stuff I was talking about. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in the pro segment, which only pro members can get, mattreport.com/join. If you're looking to save some money and get it in for $10 down and a little bit more a month, use MattPro10 at checkout, mattreport.com/join. And Marcus and I are going to continue this discussion about hiring or partnering with the right people, because I've got some things to say about that too. We're going to jump into the last few segments of the show. This segment, What's in Your Toolbox? What app or piece of software do you use on a regular basis that you don't think many people know about but you want to tell the world about?
Central Desktop. You ever use Central Desktop?
I have not.
It is a collaboration tool that is project management, collaboration. You can do online meetings. It's kind of like a built-in Google Docs element to it as well, that more than one person can do it. But I like the aspect of it that it has workspaces, and it allows me to have work teams. So I can have one space where my client happens to go in and see all of the tasks as we check them off. And then I can have a private area within that workspace where just myself and maybe one other person that's working on the project can sort of get the pre-launch steps or whatever it takes, from a technical aspect, checklist to get that down. And it has an app, and it lets me know when other people are done with things, and I can even assign things to the client as far as things that I need from a creative perspective, whether that be images or videos or just talking points or copy. And it really helps out. It gives out reports. Every task area has its own email address. So if I have a reporting system, I can actually get an email address for the task of, the monthly report, have the reporting system email that particular task, and then the client gets that as well. And then it archives it on the back end. It's about $100 a month for regular, I think 5 workspace access, and then unlimited is $350, which is what I use.
Nice. Yeah,
every month. So you got to be able to sustain that with your clients, but it's an invaluable tool once you get going.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there's so many do things with these collaborative project management tools. Like we went from Basecamp to Trello, and we're really liking that, but we never give access to Trello to a client because they would just not know what to do with it.
Right.
But I tell you, I mean, in another life, I'm just going to study the science of to-do lists and workflows and create my own CRM because it seems, project management tool, because it seems like there's an infinite amount and they just keep coming because everyone's always shifting the way they do things. And you always find something.
Yeah, I use it it's nice for me because when I bring in a new client, let's just say if it's a marketing, an online marketing client, SEO client, however you want to refer it, I have specific steps from day 0 to 6 months down the road as far as every task that needs to be done in between, from an analytical standpoint to what needs to be scanned and changed. So I have that saved as a template. So when I bring a new client on, I say, okay, this task set needs to be it. This is the starting date, and it figures out every due date in between. And assignments, too, so I can assign who the particular project person is in there as well. And so when those things get ticked off as far as being done, then the client gets an email report at the end of the week as far as what his activity is. It's completely transparent.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I got to check it out. Going to hop into the lightning round. I'll ask you a series of quick questions, and you'll have a series of quick answers.
Okay.
What's the one plugin you cannot live without?
All-in-one SEO.
A favorite WordPress or business book?
Blue Ocean Strategy.
A quote that you live or run your business by?
Google doesn't buy anything. People do.
What's the best business or career advice you ever received?
Get payment up front.
Yeah. Yes, that's the model we're all going to switch to after this conversation. What's the longest a client project has ever taken?
4 years.
If you had to switch to another CMS, what would it be?
Notepad.
Copy, paste into HTML files. Who should I interview next?
Boy. You've had so many people on. It's so difficult.
There's got to be more WordPress people out there. I got to get Andrew Nason on the show.
You got the bacon guy already, right?
Yep.
You got him.
That wannabe podcaster. No, I'm just kidding.
Have you ever talked to Suzette Frank?
No, in person I have, but not on the show.
She's one of the best WordPress evangelists I know. Nice.
I'll try to get her on the show. I know that should be pretty easy. All right, that's awesome interview. Tons of stuff that we covered. I know we moved kind of fast for those listening, but there's so much stuff I wanted to get in, talking about the dynamics of Marcus's vertical that he's in, with, of course, paying tribute to podcasting and all the time that you've spent doing that. So I bow to you, sir, on the podcasting.
Yeah. I'm just a member of the community, that's all.
Where can folks find you on the web to say thanks?
Find me at my website, marcuscouch.com, or just find me on Twitter. It's at marcuscouch.
Awesome. Everybody, for those that are sticking around the live show, we're going to hop into the pro segment. For those of you needing the pro segment, matreport.com/join, and we are going to talk about hiring and or partnering with the right people right after these messages.